You know that little padlock icon you see in your browser? Every single time it appears, a silent, super high-stakes negotiation has just taken place. It all happens in the blink of an eye. Your computer basically asks a website, "Hey, can I really trust you?" And it gets a good answer back. But how does that actually work? And what's to stop some imposter from faking that handshake and grabbing your data? That's exactly what we're going to unpack.
And this really gets right to the heart of it. It's a great question that popped up on Reddit. If a website certificate is handed out to every visitor, what's to stop an attacker from just copying it and setting up a perfect fake? I mean, it really seems like a giant security flaw, right?
Well, the short answer, and thankfully it's the short answer, is no. They can't. A stolen certificate on its own is pretty much useless. And the reason why is this really elegant system called public key cryptography. It's a system that's built on keeping one very, very important secret.
Okay, so the whole thing works because of a pair of keys that are mathematically linked together. First, you've got the public key. This is the one that's inside the certificate, the one the website hands out to literally everyone. A good analogy is to think of it like the mail slot on your front door. Anyone can walk up and drop an encrypted message inside. But then there's the private key. This is the secret. It never ever leaves the server. It's the only key in the world that can open that mailbox and read what's inside.
So, here's how that secret handshake actually proves who's who. When your browser connects, it grabs the server's public key. Then, your browser creates its own little temporary secret. We'll call it a session key, and encrypts it using that public key. It sends this locked box over to the server. Now here's the test. Only the server with the matching private key can unlock that box. If an attacker had stolen the certificate, they'd have the public key, sure, they'd get the locked box, but they can't open it. They have no way to prove they hold the secret. And so your browser just says nope and cuts the connection. No private key, no trust. Simple as that.
Right, so that brings up the next logical question, doesn't it? We've established that you need the private key to prove you're the real deal. But how does your browser know that the public key it just got actually belongs to, say, Google.com and not some attacker who just made their own set of keys?
And the answer to that problem is something called a certificate authority, or a CA. You can think of these organizations as the Internet's passport agency. Before a CA issues a certificate, it's their job to actually verify that the person asking for it really does own and control that website. Once they're satisfied, they digitally sign the certificate with their own private key, basically stamping it with their official seal of approval.
Now, your browser doesn't just trust any random organization. It comes with a built-in list. It's called a root store of about 100 or so of these super-vetted, highly trusted certificate authorities. So when your browser gets a certificate and sees it's been signed by one of these CAs on its VIP list, it says, okay, I trust this. But here is the critical weakness in the whole system. Any single one of those 100 or so trusted CAs has the power to issue a valid certificate for any website in the world. Your browser trusts them all equally. So if even one of them gets hacked, or gets tricked, or just decides to go rogue, it could issue a perfectly valid-looking certificate for your bank, for Google, for anything.
So what happens then? What happens when the passport agency itself starts handing out legitimate passports to criminals? And this isn't some theoretical what-if scenario. It has actually happened, and the consequences were pretty serious.
Let me give you a few examples. Back in 2011, a Dutch CA called DigiNotar got hacked. The attackers then issued a fake certificate for Google.com, and it was used to spy on citizens in Iran. The very same year, resellers for another CA, Komodo, got hacked. And in 2015, Symantec, a huge player, was caught deliberately issuing over 100 unauthorized test certificates from major sites like Google, all without permission.
When this stuff happens, the attacker gets what we call a rogue certificate. And because it's signed by a CA that your browser trusts, it looks totally legit. This allows the attacker to pull off a perfect man-in-the-middle attack. They can sit right between you and the real website, decrypting all of your traffic, seeing your passwords, your credit card numbers, and your browser won't show you a single warning. The padlock is there, everything looks fine, but your entire connection is compromised. It's pretty terrifying.
So clearly, the system of just blindly trusting the CAs had a huge problem. The industry really needed a way to spot these rogue certificates out in the wild. They needed a way to bring all of this out of the shadows and into the sunlight so everyone could see exactly what these CAs were up to.
And the solution they came up with is called certificate transparency, or CT. The best way to think about it is like a public ledger for all the internet's passports. It's this open system where every single certificate issued by a CA has to be published in a public, permanent log that anyone, and I mean anyone, can look at.
The way it works is actually pretty straightforward. Before a CA can issue a certificate, they have to submit a copy of it to several of these independent logs. The logs take it and hand back a kind of digital receipt, a timestamp. The CA then has to embed these receipts into the final certificate. And now, browsers like Chrome and Safari actually demand to see these receipts. If they're not there, the browser won't trust the certificate. It's a way of forcing everyone to put their cards on the table.
And here's why that's a game changer. It creates a public audit trail. So now, a company like Google can just constantly watch these public logs. If a certificate for Google.com ever pops up that they didn't ask for, they know immediately that some CA has messed up or been compromised, and they can take action right away. It puts a system of public accountability in place.
And certificate transparency is just one piece of what's really an ongoing arms race. To limit the damage a bad certificate can do, the industry has also been slashing how long certificates are even valid for. I mean, get this. Back in 2012, a certificate could be good for 5 years. By 2020, that was cut down to just over a year. And now, there's a big push to get it down to 90 days. This means that even if a rogue certificate gets out there, its window of opportunity to cause harm is shrinking fast.
So in the end, that secret handshake that keeps us all safe online is this constant dance between hard cryptographic proof and fragile human trust. We have to trust the CAs, but we verify everything they do using these public logs. And it all boils down to that classic question, one that really defines internet security today. In a digital world that's built on layers of trust, who watches the watchers?